Welcome to Tentative Title with Tim. This is a podcast about creativity, about process, about filmmaking, and about screenwriting. Welcome everybody to the show, and let's get right into it. So today's topic is about the two F's. Now, you may be asking, Tim, what are the two F's? Well, the two F's are fear and focus. Now, those are the fundamental parts of creativity that either stop us from being creative or can benefit us in the long run in being creative. Now, it's not to say that fear isn't useful in creativity and that focus can sometimes be a hindrance in creativity, but sometimes it's more of a middle ground for both of them. Like, you need a little bit of healthy fear to kind of make it worth the hurdle to get to that creative moment, to get to the point where you've broken through and the fear kind of stops you from possibly writing something that is just embarrassing, and it's there to protect us. But sometimes it's more in terms of like when you're editing. But when it comes to the start, when you're creating an idea, when you're writing that first draft, when you're just trying to get everything that's in your head onto the page, fear is not a useful tool to have. It stops everything. It gives you voices in your head of people that you may or may not know telling you that you're not good at any of this, and the story you write is going to be terrible, and the characters are going to be very flat, one-sided, and boring, and somebody's going to read this script and just laugh at you. Basically, it's the shame monster inside of you saying, if you do this, people are going to mock you. People are going to, think that you're not talented. And so to protect you from this, I'm going to make sure that you don't put yourself in that situation. And so we're not writing today, which has happened more times than I would like to admit, and has taken me more than 30 years to get beyond that fear, that initial fear of just jumping in and, saying to myself every morning, you know what happens on the page. I can always change it later, but I can't edit a blank page. You guys have heard that saying before. You can't edit a blank page, and it's true, because if you don't have any ideas on the page, then there's nothing to work with. So fear is one of those complicated emotions that can stop everything in its tracks, can make you go back to bed, can make you say, you know what, I'm hungry, I should eat something before I even start writing, or you know what, I should watch some TV. I don't have any ideas right now. Maybe I'll watch an episode of something, or hey, I'll watch a movie. That'll take up 2 hours where I can, really stew in any ideas, and maybe it'll inspire something in me to, jump out of that chair and into the other chair to, start typing away at the computer. It has this like false sense of being able to do it later, and there is no later. There is only now, and now is terrifying because that means you actually have to do it. So that's the part of the creative process that really a lot of people have to deal with constantly, and it's not something that goes away. There may be a project that you get over that hurdle of fear because you felt extremely confident about the subject matter, or there was a character that really spoke to you, and so when you were writing, it kind of just flowed out of you. But the next project probably won't be that, and that has happened plenty of times to me as well, where I've felt very confident about my abilities, and then it's on to the next story, and I'm sitting in the chair, and my stomach is turning, and I'm getting that shame monster in my head telling me that I have no talent and that the last script was just some kind of fluke. But, I work through it as much as I can. It's not easy, and sometimes it takes twice as long to get words on the page than it is for other scripts. But it is something that I constantly have to deal with. And from what I hear from other more professional established screenwriters, is that is a feeling that never goes away. And it's reassuring to hear that from people who have been in the business for a very long time, to say that they feel these emotions that I, as I feel like I'm still kind of an amateur, feel that it's very reassuring. So I've talked enough about fear. A lot of us know what that feels like and how it hinders our creative process. Focus is on the other side of this. Now, it's extremely hard to get into focus because fear often will block that from happening. But once you're there, it's like flying. It's the best feeling in the world. And as somebody who has I have 2 young kids, and at any moment they can run into the room and tell you exactly what they're thinking, about the show they're watching, about a question they have, and it's, as a parent, you can't help but want to turn to them and listen to every word that they're saying. But being in that moment of focus, it can be a bit frustrating, but also I've also learned that I can do both. I can kind of listen to what they're saying and still be focused and in the moment on the script that I'm writing. I try not to put myself in that situation. I try to wake up as early as I can, which is another part of the struggle as well, because when you get up in the morning and you don't think that you have it in you, the fear kicks in, and then sometimes you decide that you're just going to go back to bed. I've really tried not to do that, and I've been fairly successful with getting up early in the morning when nobody else is up, to be able to just sit down with my cup of coffee and just be able to put in as much work as I can with as much that I have for the day. And so when focus is in play, it's one of those it's like a switch in your head, kind of. You get beyond that fear hurdle, and then all of a sudden you're in this mode where the ideas that may not have been there before suddenly come in, and whatever story you're working on starts to flow, and simple just solutions to whatever problem you had in your story start to be resolved and answered, and then inspiration comes. And it's a hard thing to do, but it's one of those things that once you start, it's like that's half the battle. And to be able to sit down at the in front of whatever you're working on, and just being able to sit there and look at the page and then start typing, that's like the biggest step that you can take. And then even if you're writing just nonsense, eventually that nonsense ends up turning into an idea, and then that idea begins to grow, and then you start thinking of characters, and then you start thinking of the scenario, and then depending on where you are in the script. If it's at the beginning, then it's a bit easier to just kind of roll with whatever's coming to you, and you can get into the groove, and there's no stakes involved because you're just there to like throw ideas against the wall and see what sticks. And it can be a bit harder when you're in the middle of a story and you're like, okay, I've already set up these characters. I've already had such and such happen in this story, and where do I go from here? And what's next is harder to do, like being in the middle of the story and getting into that focus. But getting into that focus in that story, even if it's in the middle, is something that can be easy to do if you don't put a lot of pressure on yourself, especially when you're figuring the story out for yourself. So I plan to talk more about the process of screenwriting throughout these podcasts, and I find that like the process is very I don't want to say it's like mystical, but it tends to be something that there are many ways in to writing a story, and sometimes people plot a lot, their stories a lot before they even start writing. Some people jump right in and they have this idea and they're like, I don't care about the plotting of it. I'll just start writing it and see where it goes. So it's very fascinating because I've often felt, ashamed that I wasn't maybe doing it writing stories the right way, or that, like I'm supposed to do these steps, and I'm supposed to, have characters with bios, and then I'm supposed to have a treatment, and then I'm supposed to have this and that and this, and and I felt bad when I would skip those steps, or that I felt like I didn't need a step, because I felt that I was certain where the story was going. So it's just I'm fascinated by this idea of creating stories, and I hope you are too, and I want to explore that even more. So this is the first episode, as I probably said before, and I hope you'll come back and we can have further conversations about this great thing that all human beings have called storytelling, and how we can put it onto the page and share it with one another, because we all have great stories and weird stories and all kinds of ideas floating around in our head, and think of all the billions of stories that never actually make it out of somebody's imagination, that may be 10 times more brilliant than anything we've ever seen, but there has for some reason maybe they just didn't believe that it was worth, going beyond the fear to actually focus on getting the story out into the world. So, I want to try to be someone who can encourage that in people, because it's a great thing when you can read a story that just captivates you and just makes you fall in love with with stories and characters, and helps you solve like your own problems in the world. That's like one of the greatest things, is when you find a story that has a character that's dealing with a problem that at the time maybe you're also dealing with, and you see how they deal with it properly or completely screw it up. Like both ways are beneficial. So anyway, I hope to come back with some more, and until the next one, please be safe out there, and we'll get through this. All right, bye.